So, and I'm glad you've asked that question, because there is, at least in philosophy, there's a very clear distinction between daydreams and imagination or visualization. So let's say I'm an architect, and let's say you have a site and you want me to build or to design a house for you. I will go onto the site and I will visualize a delightful house for you. That's not daydreaming. I'm absolutely aware I'm on a site, the nature of the site, where the sun rises and sets, whether there are any trees or not, what your particular desires are. So staying true to that knowledge, I use my imagination or visualization to come up with ideally a perfect house for you. So true imagination or true visualization is always based on a reality. It's the ability to look at an acorn and see the future oak tree. It's not looking at an empty space and just imagining. Just daydreaming. So imagination or visualization always has a core or center reality to it. Daydreaming doesn't have that at all. And visualization is actually a control thing. So as I said, if you ask me to design a house for you and I start to use my imagination or visualization, 10, 15 minutes later, I will still be considering this house for you. But a daydream you've no control over, you're lost in it. So I'm going to make up an example now. And this is an exaggerated example. But if I say to you, I want you all to think of a dog, or think of dog, right, for the next 5 minutes. This will happen in some people's minds. They will think dog. Then they will think dog and cat. Then they will start to think dog and cat's home. Then they will think old people's home. Then they'll think, what am I going to do with my mother? Then they will think, is euthanasia ever justifiable? Right? And you will have moved from dog to euthanasia in 5 minutes. So that's daydreaming. Visualization doesn't have that. It has a core of reality to it, to which you stay true to. So the classic example would be the man who invented the steam engine. Stephenson, I think, was it? Louis Stephenson. He saw, if you know the story, he saw the lid of a kettle lifting with the steam. All right. And from that, he conceived of the idea of a steam engine and railways and all these sort of things. But it was based on something he clearly observed. So that's visualization or imagination. So what you'll find is if you really are, if you're sort of fortunate enough to really get a vision of something, it lends you tremendous energy to bring it into reality. At a daydream, you tend to feel depleted at the end of it. It consumes energy rather than lends energy. If you daydream about doing squats, you won't do any. Right? Yeah. I daydream about losing weight, it takes action. I could have a vision for myself. I could take out a photograph of 30 years ago and say, I could have a vision of myself returning to that state. That's a different thing. That is still vision or imagination. Well, in my case, it would definitely be imagination. As I said, daydreaming it's not connected to anything. It is completely purposeless. It's the mind wandering off and taking you to a place that you don't know where you're going, and you're only released from the daydream when it comes to an end. But if I go back to visualization of, let's say, a house as an architect, at all times I know that I'm visualizing or I'm doing architecture, and at any time I can stop. But in a daydream, you just go off. I don't know whether you've ever had this experience. If you drive a car and you want to listen to the news, all right? And it's 6 minutes, and you say to yourself, now, I must turn on the news in 2 minutes' time. And the next time you wake up out of your dream, it's 6:15, and you've missed the news. Now, that's a daydream. It deprives you of the experience of life. I mean, it's a clever enough phrase, and I think it's useful. John Lennon, in one of his songs, and I can't remember which one it was, but he said, life is what is happening to you while you're making other plans. And it's just so true. You, in those daydreams, you're missing out on that which is being presented to you. The other thing I'll just say about daydreams, which might be useful, is that a daydream can never satisfy you. Can't satisfy you. And I'll just give an example. Let's say I'm very, very, very hungry, and I fall asleep, and I daydream about being brought to the Ritz and having an outstanding meal. So it's a 6-course meal. There's even little, mint chocolates at the end, and a brandy and a port and everything like that in this daydream, and I've consumed to my absolute satisfaction, and the waiter says, would you like any more? And I say, no, that's excellent, I'm totally full. And then I wake up. I'll be absolutely hungry, because dream food cannot satisfy real hunger. So if you want to have a real life, you've got to have real food in it, not dream food. Unfortunately, the other thing which we'll notice about daydreaming, as I've defined it now, is that the less satisfied you are with your life right now, let's say you're on a bus and you don't like being on buses, then you'll tend to daydream a lot. If you're in the company of somebody and you consider them to be boring, you'll daydream a lot. Daydreaming arises when you're dissatisfied. But when you're really engaged in something you love to do, you'll find your mind doesn't wander at all. So one of the reasons we daydream so much is that our lives are so boring. And on that basis, what I would say to you is get a life.